You ever notice how some folks walk into a room like they already own it, like the world just opens doors for them? That's what was on my mind the night Ava Sinclair stepped out of a silver sedan in front of the Langston family's legendary estate. Navy suit sharp as a razor, knowing every move I made would be watched, measured, maybe even mocked. See, I wasn't just there for dinner. I was about to close a $900 million partnership between my tech company and the oldest, most blue-blooded dynasty on the West Coast. It was supposed to be the deal that proved I'd made it no matter what I looked like, no matter where I started. But let me tell you, not everybody wants to see you rise. I remember it so clear: the grand entrance, the chandeliers, the air thick with old money and thinly veiled judgment. All eyes landed on me the moment I stepped through those giant doors. That's when Meredith Langston, pearls and all, flashed a cold smile my way, and her son, Ethan, raised his glass and said, loud as a trumpet, "Hey, did someone bring the cleaning staff in early tonight?" The whole room broke into that nervous, cruel laughter you only hear from people who think nothing can touch them. For a second, I felt my heart stop, just flat out stunned. Nobody said a word to defend Minute, even the old man himself, Leonard Langston, the so-called patriarch. But I learned long ago that silence can be more brutal than words. So I just gave my most polite smile, excused myself even though I'd barely touched my dessert, and walked out with my dignity in one hand and my pride in the other. But that humiliation, that burn under the skin, if you've ever been there, you know it doesn't leave easy. Out on the terrace, sunset bouncing off a fleet of luxury cars, I stood a moment longer steadying myself, thinking about all the invisible walls I'd broken through to get here. For most folks, that night was business as usual. For me, it was a test, and I was determined not to let them see me crack. Inside, the murmurs kept swirling, half surprise, half suspicion. I saw it in their eyes. They'd read about Ava Sinclair, visionary CEO, but didn't expect her to look like me. I could have let Ethan's words rattle me, but the truth is, every big moment in my life has come with someone ready to question if I belong. You know what I mean? As I left, I caught the eye of a few younger faces, some apologetic, some just scared. Nobody spoke up. I smiled at Leonard Langston, nodded once, and left the hall, heels clicking, feeling louder than any insult they could throw. Ethan watched me leave, smug as ever, thinking he'd just reminded everyone of their place. But what he didn't realize was that sometimes the ones you try to embarrass are the ones you should fear the most. My walkout wasn't defeat, it was the opening shot of a war he wasn't prepared for. Back home, the city lights blurred outside my window, but my phone burned with messages, board members, investors, all panicking about the partnership. "You have to fix this, Ava. Don't make it personal." I just sat there, remembering every snicker in every boardroom that came before, every time someone told me, "You people didn't get to lead companies like this." My best friend and CFO, Jasmine Porter, called. "Don't throw this away for pride, Ava. Take the apology and move on." I want to say yes. I really did. But I knew if I caved now, I'd never forgive myself. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I walked into our own boardroom, and every face was tight, worried. I stood tall, probably looked calmer than I felt, and said, "We're walking away from the Langston deal. We don't trade respect for money." That landed like a grenade. Mark Evans, my head of strategy, was furious. "Ava, you're risking the whole company on a personal slight." Jasmine pleaded quietly, "Can't we just accept an apology?" I shook my head. If I take that, what does it say to every employee who's ever been overlooked, every client who ever doubted us? Dignity matters. The room was dead silent. I knew I just put my career and the company's future on the line, but I also knew I'd rather lose it all than lose myself. Meanwhile, Ethan Langston was watching from his office, probably already planning how he'd spin it, though he'd make me crawl back. But the universe has a way of flipping the script when you least expect. That evening, a shaky phone video hit social media. Someone had caught Ethan's comment on tape, every word, every sneer. Within hours, it went viral. Dignity first exploded. People I'd never met rallied behind me. Langston holding stock plummeted, Their partners cut ties, and protesters gathered outside their headquarters with signs saying, "No more bigotry in business." Inside their boardroom, Leonard Langston had no choice. Suspended Ethan, stripped him of all leadership, trying to stop the bleeding. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt the sting of consequences. His empire wasn't unbreakable anymore. My story, though, it spread like wildfire. Companies with real values, Crosby Technologies, Meridian Group, Westland Ventures, called to say, "Let's build something together." Within a week, I'd signed new deals worth more than what I'd lost, all with partners who respected what I stood for. The media spun it as a triumph. For me, it was a kind of quiet justice. Then came the invitations to speak universities, summits, everywhere. At the Pacific Leadership Forum, I stood on stage, looked out at thousands of faces, and said, "You can't buy dignity. You have to live it every day." My message wasn't just for CEOs. It was for every kid who ever wondered if they belonged in the room. I told them, success means nothing if you have to sell your self-respect to get it. Ethan watched from his office, bitterness building as his own isolation grew. His father finally admitted, "We thought money protected us. It doesn't. It just hides the cracks." Public opinion turned. The Langston family, once untouchable, became a cautionary tale, proof that arrogance and old power can't stand against collective voices demanding respect. Months passed. My company soared, our reputation built not just on numbers, but on values people could see and trust. Jasmine smiled one night, saying, "You did more than win. You changed the game." But I stayed grounded. Every message from a young woman who said my stand gave her hope. That's what mattered. That's what lasted. Meanwhile, the Langstons lost their grip. Ethan faded from the spotlight, taking on charity work far from the cameras, maybe learning at last what it means to be humbled. Leonard, now quieter, admitted he'd failed his son, but also admitted he'd learned what real leadership means. As for me, I kept working, kept building, kept speaking up for anyone told they couldn't or shouldn't. And I'd ask every audience the same thing I'll ask you now. Have you ever had to pick between your dignity and a golden opportunity? Would you stand alone if it meant staying true to who you are? If you got a story to share, drop it below. Like, share, and subscribe if this meant something to you, because the world changes one brave voice at a time. Thank you for listening.